This video is going to take a look at algebraic patterns. We'll put the date and topic at the top. The essential question will also be at the top, and we want to know how to create multiple representations of algebraic patterns. In math, there are many ways to represent algebraic patterns, or what we call relationships. We're going to take a look at a few using a very basic example. Here I've drawn two coins. This coin is going to represent the first figure in a series of figures that makes a pattern. The second figure is made up of 4 coins. The third figure has 6 coins. We can probably see right away what the pattern is. So we'll go ahead and continue the pattern with figures 4 and 5. Take a moment to draw what you think figures 4 and 5 should look like. This is what I think figures 4 and 5 look like. Do we agree? This is what we call a visual representation of our pattern. Sometimes we also call it a tile pattern because we can make it with little tiles. We can also show an algebraic pattern by creating a table. Our table is going to need 2 columns. On one side, we will record the name or number of the figure. We call that the figure number. On the other, we will write down the number of coins there are in the figure. Right? So we're putting coins here because the picture that we started with happened to use coins. From there, we can fill in data based on the pattern. Looking back at our picture, the first figure, figure number 1, had 2 coins. So I'm going to fill that in. Figure number 2 had 4 coins, and figure number 3 had 6 coins. It looks like we can figure out how many coins are in a figure by taking the figure number and multiplying it by 2. Right? That seems to be the pattern. I can use that information to continue on in my table, even if I don't have a picture in front of me. So figure number 4, if I multiply that by 2, gives me 8. Figure number 5 times 2 is 10. I can even jump ahead, right? So figure number 10, I know based on this pattern, if I multiply that by 2, figure number 10 would have 20 coins. Figure number 100, if I multiplied that by 2, would have 200 coins. This is another way people show a pattern in algebra, and this one is a table representation. There are still 2 more representations that we're going to talk about. The next way we want to look at our pattern is with words and also with a rule. We noticed a pattern earlier that the number of coins was determined by multiplying the figure number by 2. This is a nice description in words of what's happening, but I can also take my words and turn it into an algebraic equation. Right? So in my algebraic equation, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I use the figure number and I multiply the figure number by 2, it will tell me, it will equal the number of coins. Right? And I used C to stand for coins, because that made sense, and I used F to stand for figure number. Right? This is a rule or a symbolic representation. And now there's just one more way that we sometimes represent algebraic relationships. Our last way that we display our data is with a graph. So sometimes we see algebraic patterns described with a graph. I'm going to set up a graph just like we've done in previous units. In my graph, I'm going to label the information. So I'm going to put figure number at the bottom of my graph. The bottom of my graph is also known as my x-axis. I'm going to then have the number of coins along the left-hand side. This left-hand side is my y-axis. We'll talk more about these terms in another lesson. Right now, I'm going to put some numbers on my axes, and I'm going to graph the data. Figure 1, we know, has 2 coins. So I'm going to go over to 1 on the x-axis, which it talks about figure numbers. And then I'm going to go up to 2 on the y-axis. 1, 2. And I'm going to make a point here. So this represents that figure 1 has 2 coins. Figure 2, I'm going to move over to figure 2 here. Figure 2 had 4 coins, so I went over to figure 2 and I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 and make a big dot here to show that figure 2 has 4 coins. I can continue on with this pattern, right? Figure 3 had 6 coins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? It's lined up with the 6 on the y-axis. Figure 4 had 8 coins. Figure 5 had 10 coins, and so on. Right? I can see a pattern visually here. I can see that it's kind of making a straight line if I were to imagine connecting these dots. This is graphic representation. So we've seen that there are 4 main representations in algebra. We'll see things sometimes as a visual, sometimes we'll use a table, sometimes we'll make symbols or rules, and sometimes we'll use graphs. We'll be working with all 4 of these during our time with algebra. You might prefer one over the other, right? And sometimes you might decide that one works in a situation better than others, right? But we'll have lots of choices. And as we saw in the essential question, our goal was just to see that there are multiple representations in algebra.